Hi, I'm Steve Hewitt. I'm 55, 56 later this month, and I've known about my kidney disease for well over 20 years now, and I've been on dialysis for the last 7 years. I was suspected of having a genetic condition called IgA nephropathy. And they can only really confirm that diagnosis when they take a biopsy from the kidneys. So the working theory was going on for quite some time that was probably what it was. And then after a couple of years, we needed to get a definitive decision as to whether or not this was the issue. If I caught a bad chest infection or a cold in the winter, there'd be a drop off in renal function, and then gradually over the spring and the summer it would return and it would get strongly, a little bit better, but it never ever quite went back to where it was. And then the next winter I'd get another chest infection and it would drop again. And so I had this declining performance on kidney performance until in 2017 I realised I was getting seriously ill. Things weren't getting well, and towards the end my kidney function dropped right off a cliff at the end, and I needed to get some help. I was really struggling to function, and on top of the lack of physical energy, like I say, the mental confusion, which was one of the biggest things that I personally suffered with, because I could feel my thought processes slowing down. And I can remember driving along the F41 towards Liverpool to go and to take my wife to the station one morning, and I hit a roundabout, and as I approached the roundabout, and it's the exit from the motorway, as I approached the roundabout, I forgot how to drive on a motorway. On a roundabout, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know which lane to be in, didn't know it, and I just had to pull over and let Adele drive, because at that moment, just the thought of, I just didn't know how to manoeuvre the car to get round. It was just impossible, and that's like a level of confusion that's scary, because I've been driving 30 or 40 years. Just all of a sudden to forget how a roundabout works it was just a scary moment. When I got my diagnosis in 2001, my kids were into the teenage years, and it was a pretty unsettling time. I did what pretty much every patient does, I guess. I went on Google to find out something about the symptoms, and that's possibly the worst thing you can do, because you just run into a load of horror stories, and it was really unsettling. Obviously it had the impact of things like when we went to get a mortgage, health insurance was an issue, because obviously the fact that I've got a life-limiting disease meant that mortgaging wasn't quite as easy and quite as straightforward. So it had an impact on our financial security, and obviously it meant that I wasn't sure I was going to be around. I mean, looking at some of the stories I was reading, that sort of 10 to 15 years was sort of life expectancy. And obviously here I am 25 years later, and it's not to be believed. I'm sure that there are people that don't last that long, but if you're diagnosed later in life, obviously you've got less natural time left to come with you. When it became clear that I needed dialysis, I went into my hospital for some education on what the options were that were available to me. A transplant was out at that point. I was too heavy, so it was some form of dialysis. I was really scared of needles, so I didn't want to do haemodialysis. I didn't like the environment of the unit. I wanted to be at home, and so that narrowed it down to peritoneal dialysis, which is a dialysis where you have a catheter put in your stomach and you use a fluid to try and draw the toxins out. I did that for 12 months, and at least 6 months of those, my nephrologist and nursing team were saying, this isn't working well enough for you, you need to get yourself onto haemodialysis. But I persisted and really wasted 6 months, because I felt pretty rotten at that time, because it just wasn't working well enough for me. And then eventually I conceded, and I came in and I went into the unit, started on a shared care bay, did about 8 or 9 months of shared care, learned to do my needles myself, which I didn't think I would ever get the hang of. Then I got home and began to get more dialysis, more frequent dialysis, started to feel a lot better, and now I'm living life, not just existing through life. So haemodialysis is a system where it's your blood that's getting cleaned. So your blood's removed from your body and it runs around a simple system on the machine and through an artificial kidney, which is a filter, and it's replacing the function that your normal working kidneys would be doing. And then the blood comes back into your body cleaned of those toxins that have built up. It's typical in the unit to have 4-hour sessions 3 times a week, but at home you've got the flexibility to determine how much you're going to do, how frequently. So I started doing 3 hours of treatment rather than 4, but I used to do it 6 days a week. So I was getting 18 hours of treatment each week, which meant that my blood was in contact with the artificial kidney much more, and therefore there was more toxin removed, and so therefore my toxin levels were reduced at a much greater rate than they would have been when I was in the unit. And for a couple of years that was my routine, and I did 6 days a week, and I would pick my day off or pick my treatment around what was going on in life. I quite often watch a football match or a rugby match at the weekend. So if there was a game on that I wanted to watch on Sunday, I would make Saturday my day off and do my treatment, because I'm going to be sat down watching. I might as well be sat down cleaning my blood. Or alternatively, if there was a game on the Saturday, I'd watch the game on the Saturday, do my dialysis, and have the Sunday off. And so just try and sort of vary my treatments to fit into my lifestyle. After a couple of years of that, I had the idea percolating in my mind that I would like to try even longer. So I'd been reading about doing nocturnal dialysis, and so I had a great deal of chats with my nephrologist, with my specialist nursing team, and over a couple of years that idea kind of eventually crystallised in my mind. And when we moved to this house, I got a bigger treatment room than I'd had in the old house. I was able to get a bed in, and so now I gave it a try and I started doing my treatment overnight. So it just means that I can change my treatment style, treatment pattern, to fit into what's coming up in the week. So it's just for me, such an amazing benefit to have that flexibility and all that additional treatment. So for me, the decision to remove myself from the transplant list was a really difficult one, and it's one that I agonised over, not for weeks or months. It was years in process. Because my underlying kidney disease was an immune disease, I know that to have a successful transplant, they're going to have to suppress my immune system massively to allow any transplant to survive. And that brings with it other complications. So whilst I would be free of the machine and free of dialysis, having my immune system compromised to that extent would mean that I wouldn't be comfortable doing things that I currently do that I love, like going to concerts, football and rugby matches, and more importantly for me, my favourite hour of every week is the one that I spend swimming with my grandkids. And that hot, moist environment of a swimming pool is just somewhere I wouldn't be comfortable being on a regular basis with such a suppressed immune system post-transplant. So for me, that balance and knowing that the cadaver dialysis, the cadaver transplant and the nocturnal dialysis are about equal in regards to results, I think on balance my quality of life is better on nocturnal treatment than it would be on with it if I was to have a transplant. My involvement with patient support groups began when I was in that period of shared care, about to start on home dialysis, and I was looking for support with the needling issue for me, and I found another couple of support groups, and I managed to speak to, especially there was a chap in Australia that I had a lot of contact with, and he was really helpful to me. And then when I got home and I began to get stable and feel better, it dawned on me that it was really important for stable, established patients to offer a helping hand out to the patients that were coming behind them. People that were in that scared, nervous, vulnerable place that I'd been in 2017 and 2018. And the best people to help them out are patients that have been through it, come out the other side, and can see a different side to life. So I think it's really incumbent on us as patients to try and help each other out in that way. And I was looking for an avenue to try and offer that hand of friendship to all the patients, and through a nurse that was involved with Jimkin, got told about the formation of the CAMKIN group, which is obviously local to me, and I think it's something that would have been such a valuable resource to me when I was going through that in 2017, 2018. But sadly it wasn't there, but it is now. And so I've been really enthusiastic about posting on the group, getting involved with what the group's doing, attending meetups. I've helped with promotional videos, etc. I think it's really important because it gives this local view. You've got patients that have been in the same hospital, that have spoke with the same staff, that know the same issues that you're going through. And one of the things as a home patient, one of the things that I hear other patients talk about, it's not an issue that affects me. They talk about a certain amount of isolation, having had that community spirit in the hospital. Getting home, you perhaps lose that a little bit. Well, the kin groups give you that network, that social aspect, that friendship group and peer group, which is really important to a lot of people. So for me, it's such an essential tool because it's patients and patients' families in your area that are going through exactly what you've been going through. So I think it's such a good resource. So for advice for anybody that's newly diagnosed, I think there's really two key elements to it. The first of all, you need to join a good support group, because as committed as your family can be and as supporting as they are, they don't get absolutely every aspect of it. And that support network that the kin group provides from a family of other patients that have been through what you're going through is really important. And then the second thing is to educate yourself on the disease and the treatment. And I think having medical professionals on the kin group mean that you can be sure that the advice that you're getting on there is the latest and it's the right advice. It's not just disappearing down an internet black hole of bad news and scare factors.